Betsy and Thomas here for the American Intelligence Media, and we are decoding Trump tweets of December 7th towards the end of the day, and those as early as December 9th. The first tweet is, it is being reported that Lincoln James Comey was told by Department of Justice attorneys not to answer the most important questions. Total bias and corruption at the highest levels of previous administration. Force him to answer the questions under oath.
Lincoln James Comey. Lincoln, go
Lincoln
to jail.
Lyon.
Yeah, Lincoln and Lyon, both of them, go to jail. We all know he leaked. We all know he lied. And no one is doing anything about it. As a matter of fact, he gets legal help from the Department of Justice to make sure that he doesn't say anything wrong. 245 times that he deferred, lied, basically said he couldn't remember, blah, 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 whatever. 245 crimes he was covering. And they didn't ask him the good questions. I wish I could have been there asking him questions. I would have simply pointed out his name at the bottom of things and say, did you sign this? Well, then you do know that by the protocol, that means that you took an oath saying that Carter Page, by your word, because your name's at the bottom, guarantees that he has 100% been found to be a Russian agent. And yet Carter Page doesn't even come up in any of this. So what did we predict? We predicted that Comey would simply try to have it public, which he did. And then so he could defer to national security issues and, never answer the question because he's in public. But they didn't let him do that. And so he did something that he didn't want to do. He went behind closed doors, and then he had to come up with a new scam. And the new scam was he will only do it if he doesn't have to do it under oath. Okay, I didn't know there was such a thing anytime for a closed door hearing with the Congress that you're not under oath.
I mean, what's the point? Why don't you just come in and lie to us?
And so the whole thing of being under oath, it's just like remember when Peter Strzok was under oath and he had Department of Justice, CIA, FBI, lawyers telling him not to answer anything. Why? He's a criminal. He got fired from his one job. Remember, he's still not fired yet. He still works for the CIA. So this is absolutely incredible. And let's look at Andrew McCabe's trial.
Trial? There was no trial.
Well, there's a grand jury indictment, and it's secret. We haven't heard a single word. It's the way it's supposed to be with the grand jury. But with SS Herr Mueller's grand jury indictment leaks every day, which means it should be thrown out. And they're always negative, always against Trump, and the mainstream media uses them as their talking points. So in other words, Robert Mueller has been controlling the mainstream media for 2 years. Yes, we've wasted $40 million on just his team. That's nothing compared to the support money we've paid for it. So we have probably paid, at least, because it is a prerequisite, that all of these stupid special investigations can spend $100 million. I guarantee you that he will spend $100 million and go far beyond that once you look at the full cost. For what? This is Crossfire Hurricane. It is a CIA Black Ops counter intelligence operation against a sitting president. It is a coup d'etat. It is nothing short of that. And for lying James Comey, the leader of that coup d'etat, to come and simply defer to not answering questions, they should have locked him up right there on the spot. He was the head of the FBI. He darn well knows the answer to all those questions.
Well, Trump tweets next. It totally clears the president. Thank you.
Well, what Trump is referring to here is that not just Comey, he's referring to the recent Mueller supposed best shots that he's taking against Trump, and that's the Michael Cohen issue, Manafort issue, and the Michael Flynn issue. Well, look, Michael Flynn was a setup. Comey said it was a setup. Comey was on Michael Flynn's side. But then later he was saying that Trump tried to say, you need to go easy on him. Well, here's how easy they're going to go on him. They set him up to plea deal for a lie because they had an illegal surveillance tape of him saying one word wrong. That's what happened, folks, one word. And so then he took the plea deal so that he wouldn't have to be completely destroyed by the legal fees that annihilate everyone who's come underneath the attacks of Mueller and his team, especially through Andrew Weissman. So what's really happening here? Trump is saying there's no collusion whatsoever. I'm totally cleared. I always have been. The Cohen thing is nothing. I want to go into that, though, because this is very, very important. They got Cohen to plea. To plea. In other words, Cohen's lawyers came and said, we're going to say we're guilty for election fraud. Now, election fraud is not even a crime. Okay? But you have all these crazy people out there saying this means Trump's going to jail because of what Cohen has testified. First off, Cohen is not believable. Second off, there's no evidence. Well, there is. He claimed evidence. We've heard the evidence. It doesn't show that Trump is any way part of paying off two whores that were paid by David Brock and Media Matters to basically make false claims against Trump. And so, yes, Cohen was in charge of all kinds of legal actions for Trump that he made without Trump's permission. And there was no, the fact of the matter is nothing will ever happen because there was no non-disclosure agreement signed. So all of these things coming out about Cohen simply cleared Trump. But you have everybody else on the opposite side swearing this means he's going to jail.
Well, one of our readers, Anita, wrote us a question. She wants to know why President Trump hasn't released these FISA warrant that declassify with no redactions. He teased us before and nothing's happened. What's up with that, Thomas? A lot of folks actually are asking this question.
He had no other political choice than to give it to Michael Horowitz, and Michael Horowitz is sitting on it.
And Michael Horowitz, of course, is SES, so he's there protecting the swamp.
Yes, and he's the Inspector General who's clearing right now Andrew McCabe of his 5 massive crimes, including Uranium One, 10 years of corruption that Andrew McCabe oversaw, his wife's corruption in political, receiving political money that came basically directly from Hillary Clinton. So, what's going to happen here is eventually Trump will have to call it back from Horowitz because Horowitz should have been able to simply clear that stuff and pass it on through. But what it does is it shows that Comey's a criminal. It shows Andrew McCabe's a criminal.
Well,
so what they're going to do is he had to do that because of the Andrew McCabe grand jury indictment. You cannot release the information that is concerned when it is under consideration in a trial. And the same thing is what they have used for Comey to shut up Comey, to say that he can't testify about anything that Mueller is currently looking at. And that could be anything. Nobody knows. It's so broad. But the same thing here. Let's go back to Manafort. They got Manafort to say that he was part of conspiracy. Conspiracy? What? In the original charge, it is collusion. It is conspiracy to have collusion with the Trump team and Russia. Later, obstruction of justice, you notice that's all been pushed aside because there can be no such thing because Comey was his subordinate and the president can fire him at any time. There cannot be any such thing as obstruction of justice because the next guy who comes on will and should continue the exact same work. So it's complete nonsense. That's the reason that was no issue yesterday. But with Manafort, same thing. When he brought the money in from the oligarchs, the Ukrainian oligarchs, who paid him $2.7 million, but also paid more money to the Podesta brothers, and Rick Gates was part of that too, and Tony Podesta, John Podesta. What happened from that? Oh, then they whipped that around and made it into a conspiracy. All he did was sneak in some money from an offshore account. That's not even illegal. But it was because of tax evasion, because he didn't pay taxes on it, because it was offshore money. So hello, how about George Soros? How about so many of the people in Congress who have offshore accounts? They should put all of them in jail, like Paul Manafort, and make sure, that they literally, last time he was in a wheelchair, putting him in jail in solitary confinement is probably going to kill this guy, a guy who was a kingmaker, a guy who was a president maker, a guy who was Viktor Yanukovych's hero in Ukraine, brought him to power twice. That's how powerful Paul Manafort is, and they're taking him down. Now, Felix Sater, we told you all about this. Nobody else told you anything until recently, and now it's all a lie. Felix Sater and Cohen, they're old friends, and he did not take Cohen to Russia. Felix Sater took Ivanka and Don Jr. 3 times to Russia under all kinds of crazy-ass auspices that were completely incorrect. And they realized it after the first one and said, we're not really going to have any part of this. And so they put no money into it ever. And so this was nothing more than like looking at a house for the rest of us. That's what it would be, is if we went down the street to look at a house. that is for sale. And even then, there was nothing for sale, and it was never going to happen because Russia didn't want it, because that's the way Russia is. So what's going on here is that the president is cleared by all of this. But the crazos, the socialists, the fascists, the democratic fascists, they're all screaming impeachment. They're all screaming he will go to jail.
Well, maybe then we all ought to show up in Washington with our own yellow vests on and have a 10 million person march and just march these people right out of the swamp. If Trump can't do it on his own, what can citizens do? I mean, we're watching what's going on in France right now. The citizens are fed up with globalism. And you know what? We in the United States are fed up with globalism. And all of these characters you've just named, they're just the face. They're just the puppets of the masters behind them who want to destroy America and roll out this one world government.
Absolutely. And that's the problem, is that the globalists are so amazingly prideful that they believe that we don't know that their carbon tax was about to be put on every human on the face of the earth. And this is how they were going to become enriched more than ever before in history.
Well, you know, we've given them over 2,000 years to run the planet, and they have done a piss-poor job. I say it's time to overthrow them all, and we, the people, need to take over and see what we can do over the next 2,000 years. Moving on to the next tweet, the Paris Agreement isn't working out so well for Paris. Protests and riots all over France. People do not want to pay large sums of money, much to third world countries that are questionably run, in order to maybe protect the environment, chanting, "We want Trump, love France."
Isn't that beautiful?
And they're chanting this in Brussels, in the United Kingdom, all over the world. Now, I don't hear them do this in Italy because Matteo Salvini is protecting his borders and is protecting his nation.
Trump candidates around the world are winning. It's a new party, and it's anti-globalism, but it's based upon individual nations and people coming forward in those nations to stand up and to tell the friggin' truth. And the truth is horrible, folks. The truth is not allowed in Europe. And as a matter of fact, I was disgusted today to see that imbecile Macron tried to tell Trump that he can't tweet about France. Are you kidding? So then, are you saying, President Macron, that your Fourth Reich that you have created with Angela Merkel, you know, the Third Reich was the Nazis, the Fourth Reich, this is the Fourth Reich. That would be Germany and France joining together and already saying they're going to create a military.
Well, they have, because when you look at the riots on the ground, you'll see some of the tanks have the European Union flag. I mean, how obvious can you be? You have created the Fourth Reich.
They absolutely have. This is I guess this would be the Soros Soviet Socialist Europe, SSSE. It's just a resurrection of the USSR. It's socialism handed over to a very, very few unelected group of people. And this is the Fourth Reich. And Trump has already said, look, you can create your own standing army, but first pay your dadgum bills with NATO. And I'm not going to give you the equipment that you want to create your military until you pay your bills. And so it's nothing more than flapping their gums and showing who they are. Same thing that happens over here, the Trump effect. People attack him, they show who they are. Impeach Trump! And then people say, well, what's the crime? I don't know, we'll find one. That's what a recent person in Congress said. So Macron is a Nazi. What don't people understand about this? Yes, they need to take him down, but it was fake elections. The way they took out Le Pen was completely, absolutely incorrect. I will just leave it at that.
There's election rigging going on that people aren't looking at.
And this is the people in France, in Paris, the Paris Accord, waking up to the fact that they're going to do what? They're going to raise the gas prices on the people who actually pay the taxes, who support, whose money then goes into the social system. You know that France has like one of the largest taxes so that they can create their socialist government. Well, now they're upset because the people paying taxes are realizing that not only is Macron going to tax gas, they're going to tax everything because that's what they need to pay for the immigrant invasion. Okay? So now they have a list of what they really want. On the list is get rid of the migrants, which aren't migrants, they're invaders.
They're not immigrants and they're not migrants. These are alien invaders that are going to take over Europe, because once they infiltrate Europe and wipe out national identity, it's a lot easier to create this one world government. So they're nation destroyers.
Absolutely. And they are nation destroyers, exactly as you say, because look at what Macron said. No more nations. Look at what Angela Merkel does. She takes the flag of Germany out of a person's hand and said, there is no more Germany. This is where they're going. The Fourth Reich. Make no mistake about it. We could be at war against Europe if this continues, though I predict that it will not, because for a variety of reasons. But first, this is the people waking up to the tax that they didn't know was going to hit them in the pocketbook so hugely, as it were. And the best definition I've ever seen of the Paris Climate Accord, Trump just gave us. People ought to pay attention. If you pay close attention, you'll find out that the Climate Accord was going to do absolutely nothing. And in fact, we'll get another tweet on this, what it was going to do was simply attempt to take money from the rich and give it to the poor, but those poor are criminals. This is the stupidest tax ever created. Here's the definition, folks. To pay large sums of money, much to third world countries that are questionably run, that's China, that's Russia, that's Syria, that's all these countries, in order to maybe protect the environment. Maybe. First off, he points out it's a complete fallacy. And he even used the word protect the environment, not change climate. You cannot change climate. How stupid could you be? The sun creates climate. Hello? Are you changing the sun? Then don't think you're changing the earth. Thank you for that beautiful definition, Mr. President.
The idea of a European military didn't work out too well in World War I or II, but the U.S. was there for you and always will be. All we ask is that you pay your fair share of NATO. Germany is paying 1% while the U.S. pays 4.3% of a much larger GDP to protect Europe. Fairness.
Well, they know that it's a joke. To protect Europe from whom? Russia? Oh, really? What has Russia done?
No.
Where there weren't elections. There were elections in two parts of the Ukraine. There was an election in Crimea that said they wanted Russia back in. So where was the encroachment? Where are the attacks? Where is the militarism that all this money is going to? To protect Europe? That is a Soros myth. That is a Cold War myth, to think that the Cold War is going to turn into a hot war. Russia is providing Angela Merkel with the oil through Nord Stream 1 and 2 that keeps Europe alive. And then you want to call Russia your enemy? This is just sheer stupidity.
Well, it's the globalists in America, and they are both Democrats and Republicans, who are raiding our coffers and our monies and transferring that wealth over to the globalists in Europe. So they're using our hard-earned money to run their New World Order agenda, because they have no way to get revenue unless they steal it from us. Next tweet reads, after 2 years and millions of pages of documents and a cost over $30 million, no collusion.
This cracks me up. I hope that after this that there will be not a special investigation. There are always criminal enterprises or a grand jury, which is always a criminal enterprise. No, we need Whitaker and Barr to step up, the heads of the DOJ, and conduct a variety of investigations, because these investigations are all one-sided. So now we need another investigation to see the other side.
So we're talking about they're going to be dragging this out for another 2 years. I have no faith in Barr or Whitaker. I see no proof of anything happened. And of course, we have to have Barr go through the confirmation process. I understand that. But I am going to be very upset, Thomas, if these people get in place and nothing happens. The people of America want to see some trials, whether they're military tribunals, civil trials, and we want to see action taken against the people who have committed treason against the American people.
Yes, and stop calling it, political maneuvering
and
or whatever.
It's not perjury. These people committed treason.
That's right. And what he's pointing out here is that there's no collusion with Russia. That would be no Trump collusion with Russia, because there's so much collusion with Russia with Hillary. Don't forget that everyone had Hillary's emails. Everybody except who? Russia. Why didn't Russia want them? They didn't need them. Putin slept every night with Hillary. Hello? They sleep in the same bed. What do people not understand about the fact that Hillary is a Russian communist? She is a Chinese communist. She has sold out America worse than probably any person in U.S. history. And if you can't find the hundreds of millions of dollars that were illegally transferred for the uranium one, then you're a blind DOJ lawyer. If you can't find Podesta's Joule Energy deals, you're a blind DOJ lawyer. If you can't find that Podesta was lobbying not only for Ukraine, but Russia at the same time that he was running Hillary's campaign, then you're an idiot. So sorry. It's actually more like 40 million. And don't forget the 50 million that was that has been used to aid Mueller in his investigation from the Penn Group. What's it called? Penn Quarter Group. Mm-hmm. And Daniel Jones, who, well, don't get me into that. And then the 12 million that was also spent from Fusion GPS. Add that together, and you get over $100 million to try to find any connection between Trump and Russia, and there ain't none.
I am pleased to announce my nomination of 4-star General Mark Miley, Chief of Staff of the United States Army, as the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, replacing General Joe Dunford, who will be retiring. I am thankful to both of these incredible men for their service to our country. Date of transition to be determined.
That's all good. I'm glad Dunford's out. Dunford was involved in way too much nonsense. But anyway, didn't you have a question before that I rolled right over because I was so stuck in my other tweet back there?
Yeah.
What was that question?
Anita asked another question. She wants to know why Trump hasn't signed the Leader Technology payment from the Miller Act and why we have seen nothing happen. And I am pretty disgusted too. We have shown that the U.S. Patent Office and all these crooks in Washington stole a very valuable patent and then weaponized it against the United States. The good people at Leader Technology have done everything they're supposed to legally, and they put a bill in and they said, Mr. President, we need to be paid, and we haven't heard anything. Why isn't Trump and his team acknowledging Leader Technologies, the theft, and taking down social media because of their theft?
Well, I can only speculate on that, Betsy, but if I were Trump, this is what I would be thinking. I've already scared the snot out. First off, he's changed the entire world. He's gotten China to stop stealing our IP, and he's called them out on the carpet for what they've done. He has changed our entire political landscape. The topology of Washington District of Crime is now the District of Columbia. Columbia herself has returned, the being of freedom, and she is now watching over Washington, D.C. She had been, and I hate to say what all they had done to her, but she had been chased out. The being of freedom had been completely chased out of D.C. So what is really going on with that? Well,
I know it's a tough question.
No,
because
it's very simple. He is waiting for the FANG to fall. He's already gone after Amazon and said, all I have to do is charge you proper postage and you collapse overnight. All I have to do is take back your military contracts and you collapse overnight. So have you heard Jeff Bezos out there saying he's going to be president since Trump confronted him and said, I think you have a monopoly? And then he said to dude Zuckerberg, antitrust. And at one point he mentioned RICO. All the things we told him were the 3 magic words to take down Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google, and also that would be Microsoft and Apple and
well, we need to take down Alphabet. I mean, Eric Schmidt, he's got a deadly combination. He's got this Dragonfly social credit scoring going, and now they have these driverless cars called Waymo. You probably will see them in your neighborhood. Now, the thing is when you combine all of these technologies into one thing, what you really have are driving machines that Eric Schmidt's behind that's just going to load up your family, lock them in, and take them to the closest internment camp if you don't have a good social credit score. And don't tell me this won't happen. We've seen what's happening in China with this technology, and Eric Schmidt is no friend of freedom.
You may think Betsy's exaggerating, but during 2015 Jade Helm exercises, the only real thing that happened is on the East Coast, many people, no one knows how many, were picked up in these military vehicles, these personnel carriers. Their cars were pulled over, they were picked up, and they were disappeared. No more. Gone. So if you think this is an exaggeration, you are incorrect. And they would much rather put us in the FEMA camps than put the illegal aliens because they are here to create chaos so that George Soros and his like and others can come in and economically ravage and fleece America, which they're doing a very good job of, by the way.
All right, anything we need to know about Mark Miley or the exiting of Joe Dunford?
Every general is the same because they are under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. If they lie, cheat, or create treasonous acts, they get hung.
Well, not if they are also globalists and also trying to undermine and take over America. How do we know that we can trust our military at this point?
Well, here's how. When they leave the military and then they join the Council on Foreign Relations, and they are 100% a globalist, and there's a whole bunch of those. And those are some of the most evil people on the face of the earth because they're ruthless killers. But while they are underneath the Uniform Code of Military Justice, the president can put them in jail and have them hung in a day.
But if there's a coup d'etat going on, how can that work? I mean, I'm very suspicious now because I don't see that the president is surrounded by a strong force of patriots.
Remember, all of these people still have underneath them or above them senior executive service members. It could be very possible that many members of who are in that group.
Well, you've got that $21 trillion lady. She's still saying that SES is just a pay grade. Oh my gosh. Is she deliberately keeping her audience in the dark?
Yeah, she's SES. There's no doubt about that. And so the Joint Chiefs of Staff, they're probably all SES by now. They might be, they might not be. It depends on how they rose up through the military. Now, the point is the military at the highest levels do not have necessarily SES members who are going to be able to tell generals what to do. They can administratively tell them. And this is an administrative coup. This is a coup by the intelligence community. This is a coup by cyber warfare association with Russians that don't exist and collusion that never happened so that it could, in fact, simply be a buffer and to run interference for Hillary because of her Russian collusion. Uranium One, Skolkovo, the uranium enrichment facilities they built for them. I mean, you could not be any better friend to Putin than Hillary Clinton. She is a communist.
Okay, that explains the pantsuits. Okay, now the next tweet is Gerald Rivero, time for the witch hunt to end, is a quote from him. This is collusion illusion. There is no smoking gun here. At this late date, after all that we have gone through, after millions have been spent, we have no Russian collusion. There is nothing impeachable here.
Leave it to Geraldo to make a big statement that is so evident. If Geraldo Rivera says there's nothing impeachable here because he's an idiot, then there's nothing impeachable here.
Okay, next tweet. Very sad day and night in Paris. Maybe it's time to end the ridiculous and extremely expensive Paris Agreement and return money back to the people in the form of lower taxes. The U.S. was way ahead of the curve on that and the only major country where emissions went down last year. Now that tweet is not going to make Macron very happy.
No, this is a slap across his nasty little face. Now,
he might like that.
He would probably
he
like
has
that.
one of those grand wives. When you marry somebody who's like 40 years older than you.
I'm sure that Rothschild witch slaps him around. Are you kidding? I mean, he is nothing more than a puppet. He's like a dummy sitting on the lap of a ventriloquist. But if there were a crime already with the attempted coup d'etat of Mueller, the indictments would have already come. They would have been the first indictments. So anybody who thinks there's still something to come or there's still something to this nothing burger is simply, I hate to call them just plain stupid, but you're just not paying any attention whatsoever to reality. And you're one of these emotional people because when these people are talking about impeachment, they're so emotional that when the person then says, well, what's the crime? Well, we don't know, but he's done so much. He's such a criminal. He's a criminal family, they now say. He's a criminal family, so therefore we'll find the crime. We'll start the impeachment now. Same thing happened with the special counsel investigation. We'll go ahead and start the investigation, though there is no crime. We'll continue it for years and years, and we'll charge tens of millions of dollars, and then we're going to say that Robert Mueller is ethical.
Watch Denang Dick Blumenthal on television spewing facts almost as accurate as his bravery in Vietnam, which he never saw. As the bullets whizzed by Denang Dick's head, as he was saving soldiers left and right. He then woke up from his dream screaming that he lied. Next time I go to Vietnam, I'll ask the Dick to travel with me.
Why? I hope, I know why, but I hope that people are not stupid enough to listen to the characters that mainstream media give you on the other side as the counterbalance to the great stuff that Trump is doing. So when you have to listen to a De Niro who is a pedophile, are you kidding? De Niro is one of the grossest people in Hollywood, always has been. Everybody knows that. Why would we listen to him? Jim Carrey? Jim Carrey is an insane man, always has been. Every interview will tell you, he'll tell you, he's insane. Why would we show the pictures of his violence against political officials, which should put him in jail? But no. He makes the front page. Why are we listening to Barbara Streisand saying that Trump caused her to gain weight and therefore it's ruined her life because Trump caused her to gain weight? Or why are we listening to Cher? Cher, look in the mirror, look at your face. Why would we listen to anybody like that? Okay? Michael Moore. Please, Michael Moore, you're nothing but a disaster. And anytime that you did make money, it was because you made it on things like Bowling for Columbine, where you basically went in and manipulated people's emotions and took advantage of it so you could make money from it, and you did a bad job on all of them because you didn't know they were false flags. You're such an idiot. Now, Dick Blumenthal, there are useful idiots and then there's unuseful idiots, and he is an unuseful idiot. He is the kind of idiot that the Congress is going to be seeing stand up, boom, 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 like whack-a-mole. Impeachment, impeachment, crime, subpoena, subpoena. I have 40,000 subpoenas. I'm going to subpoena Trump every day for the rest of his life, and I'm going to find a crime. They look like idiots. They've already started in. They don't even have the power. Adam Schiff has come out and said that Trump will be a president that goes to jail. That a minute that he is done with his presidency, he will be arrested and go to jail. No, Adam Schiff, you should go to jail because you worked with people to try to get fake information on Trump through, supposedly through Russians. You yourself worked with what you thought were Russians to get the fake information. And then your other group, the Senate Intelligence Committee, they worked with Christopher Steele. Remember, anytime you say Christopher Steele, you say that is a felony, and it's worse than a felony. There's not even a word for it. It's meddling in the elections because Christopher Steele is British. And then when Comey lied all those times, 245 times, said he didn't know Christopher Steele, didn't know Bruce Orr was his contact, impossible. That's like saying he didn't ever get a report from Andrew McCabe, who was running all of these things, or he didn't get a report from Peter Strzok, who was right there in Andrew McCabe in the special group that was reporting to Comey over and over and over again. And Comey told us all that they reported to him. This is the amazing thing. That's the reason I call them the bunk buddies.
But they can't let you go back to Christopher Steele and really know the truth there, because then that exposes that the entire British monarch and the Privy Council as being the New World thugs that they are, trying to overthrow our president.
It is. It's disgusting. Because why hasn't Christopher Steele been questioned? Why hasn't Sergei Milligan been questioned? Why hasn't Alexei Gubarev?
How about Stefan Halper?
How about all the real Russians that were named in the dossier who are suing Christopher Steele for being a liar? Why isn't Mueller investigating them? Those are the Russians. Hello?
Because he is an American Nazi, and he's there to make sure that his party, run by the Senior Executive Service and serviced by Serco, which is the British monarch, they are the ones that are taking over America right now. And then they use this alien invaders to hit all of our borders to make us weak.
It seems, Betsy, to me, after hearing Comey, that the only prerequisite for being the head of an American intelligence agency is to be a professional liar. Look at James Clapper, liar.
Well, it makes you wonder.
John Brennan, liar.
How is Trump getting any good intelligence from these agencies?
He's getting it from us, Betsy.
Okay, so the next tweet reads, on 245 occasions, former FBI Director James Comey told House investigators he didn't know, didn't recall, couldn't remember things when asked, opened investigations on 4 Americans, not 2, didn't know who signed off, and didn't know Christopher Steele. All lies. I mean, just beyond being the head of the FBI, every good American patriot now knows who Christopher Steele is. You mean this idiot doesn't?
He is a liar because he signed the FISA warrants, which stated that Christopher Steele was the source of the Russian dossier, which was, he later said, was salacious and was unverified, but was in fact the source for the FISA warrant that he signed for Carter Page, which swore, he had to swear Carter Page was 100% a Russian spy and produce the evidence. He didn't produce any of that. The FISA court didn't even look at it. There was no hearing. It was an application. I've told everybody this. Nobody wants to listen. I don't know why. But as we said before, every one of his 245 occasions where he opened his mouth, that would have been 245 acts of treason he was covering. He should have, at that moment, been arrested by the Sergeant of Arms of the Congress and taken to jail for being a belligerent witness when he was, in fact, being questioned about the most important.
Wait a minute. You mean the same Washington police that allowed Imran Awan to run havoc in Congress, leaving his computers around and all that, but never being arrested?
That's correct.
That one?
Same
you
one.
See, they're all out to destroy America. We might have to, as citizens, show up with our own yellow vests and take these thugs out. In nonviolent ways and all that
lovingly.
stuff, lovingly.
With loving bullets and hugging arms that are bombs.
How they, over in France, I saw a picture where the people had come in with cinder blocks and cement, and they were just building walls.
To protect the president. Those walls, and then they rushed the president's own place where he lived, and he's probably nervous. I think he'll probably just resign and let his wife run things. Now going on. First off, they should have arrested him for being a belligerent witness who was lying because of the perjury that he committed, which was so fantastic that even I could have sat there and said, okay, there's 1, there's 2, there's 10, there's 100 lies you just told. Lock him up. I'm so sick of Mueller giving him immunity through some kind of magical way that now Comey says he doesn't even know Mueller. He doesn't know his name. He's never kissed him. He's never hugged him. Liar! You followed him in job after job after job. You worked with him with HSBC. How about when you were in, don't even get me started, Ashcroft? How about when they were in the hospital with Ashcroft? I would have just stood in front of him with an 800-pound gorilla, and every time he lied, had the 800-pound gorilla slap into the ground. Or when he said he didn't remember. You can't be the head of the FBI and not remember things that were national security, because if you did, then you are some kind of enemy of the state, and you need to be locked up until we find out how bad you are now.
Do we have the same case with Christopher Wray? Is he going to turn out to be a person who can't remember anything?
Well, Christopher Wray has told some truth, and those truths make it all seem insane. He says he has the 33,000 missing Hillary emails.
Why doesn't he give them over? Well, you see, the thing is,
he has all the computers.
Don't trust him.
No.
He's senior executive service, and I haven't seen any clear action. I mean, after all, in the last decade, just take the last decade, have you seen the FBI break any really big case and put any major criminals away?
No, they go after the little ones. They don't go after any of the big ones.
All right. Leakin James Comey must have set a record for who lied the most to Congress in one day. His Friday testimony was so untruthful. This whole deal is a rigged fraud headed up by dishonest people who would do anything so that I could not become president. They are now exposed.
And that's the important point. They are exposed, and it may take a long time, but if there's any justice whatsoever in the Department of Justice, and if they listened to their president, then eventually Clinton, Comey, the whole gang, Mueller will have to go to jail too, because it's a rigged fraud.
Mueller needs to face treason charges.
Yes.
Going to jail will be the least of his worries.
Well, he was ex-military. Maybe they can...
Yes, there is a quick and easy way to take care of Mueller. It's called a military tribunal, and I expect that as soon as this is wrapped up, our military needs to haul him away and put him on trial, and they need to start with 9/11.
And as Kavanaugh said, there's multiple ways to go after treasonous people, even if they are domestic and they aren't part of any military.
What? I don't recall. What did he say?
Well, he said there's two ways to go after it. You can either use a military tribunal, the Uniform Code of Military Justice, if they were underneath those regulations, or you can go after them as private citizens. You don't even have to be a citizen. Treason.
Is our military really going to allow someone like Mueller to go untried for these horrific crimes against Americans?
I hope not. But it shows you the fraud also going on in the Congress that, when Adam Schiff comes to be the leader of the Intelligence Committee in the Congress, he's saying that, Trump is a criminal. He reads everything the opposite. He is a criminal. He is a criminal. And in many of the things that he's doing, show that he's on the wrong side. But they're all exposing themselves. So the next 2 years will be the end of the Democrats because they're just exposing themselves. These guys are running out, throwing down their pants, saying Trump has sex with girls as they're showing their nakedness to the world.
We're taking that part out.
But it's the truth. How about Senator Underpants? How about Al Green? How about Gregory Meeks? How about all of them that have sexually assaulted people who work for them? No, don't take this out. Leave it in there. These are people going out there screaming that Trump did something which they are then doing right there on the spot themselves. Al Green, you're a criminal. And you say you want to impeach Trump. You've already brought it forth twice. Once it went to a vote. What did you get, 5 people? Anyway, the point is, you're the criminal. So every time that people do things, they expose themselves. So let me just show how Comey has exposed himself. He has total disregard for the rule of law, but he was one of the highest law enforcement agents in our country. How does that work out? That works out in his book. And I love it that they say he couldn't remember anything, but he sure could remember enough lies to create his book. People have now analyzed the book. They say there's not one speck of truth in it. I have not read it because I knew there wouldn't be, simply by the title. A Higher Loyalty. Truth, Lies, and Leadership. Hello? That sounds like it was written by a Jesuit. That is such subversion. That is such subliminal control. He's saying right there in the title, there's a higher loyalty than truth. And that lies and leadership go together.
That is a Jesuit.
That he's working out of the same kind of subversive activity that you would see that the Jesuits have been using for a long time. It shows that he's a deep stater. He's a shadow government. He's SCS. He shows that he has total disregard for it all because he knows that the SCS controls the fake, that's right, justice system. And the fake congressional hearing system, because nothing ever happens. No one ever gets convicted there. So look at his book. You'll not find a speck of truth. But what you will find is who he is. It's a book of lies. It's a book that says that his loyalty is not to DC. It's to the deep state, which is globalist. It shows one thing and one thing only, that his greatest pride is that he's a fixer and that he is a fake law enforcement officer who has impunity to act in any way that he wants in total disregard to the law and believes that he's above the president, the Congress, or the Supreme Court.